Hey guys, I am so excited. We are here back. You know, my name is Rachel Feldman, and I have brought this amazing woman onto the podcast, which is Healthy Hustle. And I always say that because you do need to work hard to build your business, but you don't want to go into emotional vacancy. You don't want to all of a sudden feel exhausted and tired and depressed. And I see this across the board. So there is a way to show up and hustle and build your business without making it that way that we look at hustle, which is exhausting, tiring, depleting, shutting the door, not talking to anyone. So my amazing guest today is Lisa Fabrega, and we are going to deep dive into how to hold that capacity, that space for yourself, and still go after your dreams, show up in the most authentic way, and one that is going to attract that client who says, wow, this person isn't drained and fatigued. So with that being said, I just wanted to introduce you and say thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm really excited to be here as well.
So for people who don't know you, and I have known you because I've followed you for many, many years, can you tell people just a little about yourself before we deep dive into some questions?
Yeah. So I basically have been working for almost a decade now with very high performer, high achieving women who follow, your podcast and are part of your community, who are here to leave legacies in the world, and they're here to play really big. And the work that I do with them is really about expanding their capacity so that they can step into a whole new way of being in the world. That the way that we have been taught that we go after success, or the way that we've been taught that we have to juggle a million balls in the air, all those ways we re-examine what actually works for you, and still at the same time can expand your capacity to hold more and more and more. Doesn't mean putting more on your plate and doing more. It means holding. So a really great example that I often give my clients is one of the people I admire most, which is Oprah. And I always ask them, how do you think Oprah does everything that she does on a daily basis? Because she owns a network. She has a magazine. I mean, she's everywhere. She's getting interviewed. Like, she's putting together, I have a book that she put together. Like, how does she jump on a plane, go here, go there? She lives 5 minutes away from me here in Santa Barbara. Like, how does she do all this craziness? Yeah. And it's because she has capacity. It's because she has the capacity to hold it all. And she still looks really pleasured up and happy and joyful and healthy. And that's that eternal question that I help my clients to address is, how do I get that versus what I have now, which is I've built all of this success, but now I'm getting divorced, or my relationships are falling apart, or I have adrenal fatigue, I'm burned out, or I feel like just throwing, even though it's $1 million business, I just feel like throwing it away and starting all over. So that's the work that we do. And it's incredibly important because you know this, Rachel, but especially women who start their own businesses or have their own big missions, careers, whatever it might look like for you who is listening, we tend to have these brilliant minds, and we're used to using strategies to get to where we need to go. But after a certain point in your earning, strategies, that's it. Strategy is not going to help you not get a divorce with your partner. Strategy is not going to help you go to your next million if you don't have the emotional and internal capacity, or the right capacity in terms of your team, or the right boundaries to get to where you want to go. So that's the work that I do.
I always say when somebody gives this such power-packed answer, I think, okay, should we extend this to 7 hours? Can this be a 7-hour podcast? Okay, so many things came up. I would say the first thing that I thought of right away is I have seen so many successful powerhouse women who just explained shut down their business in the last year, 2 years, or come out vocally on social media and say, my marriage was falling apart, I was making a lot of money, my kids, I don't even see them. And that's not the life, as you said, when we're these big thinkers with these dreams to change the world in whatever business, all of a sudden life is a hot mess.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a question first. Why do you think we are not equipped with this capacity? Or do you think that it was taken away at one time, or we lost it, or we gave it up?
That is such a good question. I'm
I
so
was like, before we get into the other
I'm
things.
so excited to answer this question because I think about this all the time. Why?
Yeah.
I think it's because, and we're going to go deep here, I think it's because of the toxic patriarchy that we all live in. And that's not, I'm not saying men, I'm talking the patriarchy, like women and
The
men,
system.
right? The system. First of all, we do all have the capacity to achieve our dreams. We do have it. It's there. But the way the societal structures are set up, we are taught that we have to bust our buns to be worthy of receiving a certain amount of money. Or I was just a guest speaker on somebody's mastermind yesterday, and there was a woman talking about how she just feels bad raising her prices and doing the same amount of work. And I'm like, that's the toxic patriarchy living inside of you, because you think that you have to, like, if I'm going to charge this much money, I've got to do double the hard work. And underneath that is a root belief that we are taught by this world that teaches us we're broken and not already whole, which is that I am not worthy, right? And so if I want to take a vacation and I believe that I'm not worthy, I'm feeling guilty the whole vacation, like I should be working, like I should be hustling, and depleting myself in order to be worthy of receiving the rewards that come with that hustle. So I think that is why we don't have, or don't think we have capacity, because underneath all of that, there's this deeply embedded belief in the current culture, which is you're not worthy just for being, and you are broken, which is an illusion. We're not broken. We are whole. And if you think you're broken, then every action that you take is going to come from a place of brokenness, from the lensing of brokenness. And then you're setting yourself up to deplete yourself, to not listen to your soul, instead of just only be guided by your ego guidance, which is not always the best thing to, you want to balance both. You want both of them working together, right? And so that's part of it. And the other part of it is that, I noticed that there's 6 places that people tend to plateau when it comes to doing their big work and leaving their legacy and going to their next level. And I think that not enough attention is placed on, I call them the capacity plateaus. I don't think there's enough attention because of this very uber left-brained, strategic, overly masculine way that we tend to approach life and business and our governments and all of our structures. We tend to think that if I just throw another strategy at it, it's going to fix it. Or if I just hire some, like strategic someone to help me fix my marriage. But are you dealing with the stuff inside of you that's making the marriage not work? Are you dealing with the stuff inside of you, like I said, that's driving you to not raise your prices because you feel guilty or unworthy of those prices? And most people, we don't have that focus. We aren't taught to have that focus on the inner world. It's a society that's very focused on outward in, outward in, outward in. So I think that's part of the problem.
So for women, and it's interesting because we were using this word powerhouse. But as you were talking, I said, there is not one person in what you said that can identify with some aspects. I know so many of us, especially as women, we martyr, we puppet master, we push the feelings down. Don't say anything. And that just further says, no, you're not worth it to hold boundaries, not worth it to hold your power. And I know I struggled with that for the longest time. And I was in depletion until I said, all right, there is a deep, deep layer of work that I must do. And I probably am going to be in the depths of what feels emotional hell. But if I don't do it, I will lose everything. And it had nothing to do with my business. So tell me some of the things that you feel women who are in this place. This is not only in the subconscious driving, but it's very conscious.
Yeah.
What are the steps you say, you are a woman who wants these dreams and you're doing this talk?
Yeah.
What steps can that woman take, or what you teach?
Yeah, I think the first thing that you need to acknowledge to yourself, and this is a tough one. So this is a tough mirror to look into, and I've been talking about it a lot lately with women, is that you need to understand how you've been indoctrinated to believe that it's safer for you to pretend to yourself that you're weak, you're
Mm-hmm.
fragile, you can't handle it,
You're
right?
too much. Yeah.
Right. And it's actually a pretending to ourselves. It's an illusion we create and we perpetuate onto ourselves. And it's because in order to survive for many years, we had to play the weak role, because when we were too powerful, we would get killed or there would be controversy. And there's still controversy. I mean, you're a powerful woman. I'm a powerful woman. I'm sure you've gotten crazy hate comments on whenever you put yourself out there. You know, there's a special threat. So I think first you need to examine, like, oh, you know, there's a story I'm telling myself that I have absorbed from society, which is that I have to pretend to myself that I'm weak. I'm going to give you a great example. I've been working with a client who is a brilliant a nutrition practitioner, brilliant. And she's so good that this big institution hires her to teach all their students. And she has been wanting to launch a mastermind level program for a long time. And she was working through a lot of fears going into the launching of this. And the week before she was going to open it up, and by the way, she had like posted about it and she got 35 sales calls. Okay. Like, I was like, you are rocking it. That's amazing. 35 sales calls from one Facebook post. And so anyway, the week before, she sends me a text message and she says, I've just been to the doctor and they've discovered that I have a tiny hole in my heart and I'm feeling very tired. And I'm just wondering now if I should be launching this program at all. And I said, stop pretending that you're too weak to handle both things. And I'm not saying that from a place like push harder. No, because I knew she wasn't pushing too hard, right? But I said, you are pretending that you are weak and you are not. And she was like, you know what? At first she was a little bit like, no, I'm not. I really do feel tired. I was like, sit with it. And a few days later, she was like, holy crap, Lisa, you were right. And she ended up launching the program and she's made like $25,000 so far, enrolling people in it. And then she was like, oh, now that I'm on the other side of this, you're right. Like, I can totally handle this health issue I'm having and be a little tired, right? And launch my program, but launch my program in a way that is not burning me out and tiring me out, because I've got these areas taken care of, which I can tell you what the areas are, because I think this is a follow-up to the rest of your question. It's what I call the capacity plateau areas where women tend to hit a wall, okay? And this is great in relation to the story with the client. Women, or not just women, all humans, but because I work with women, money capacity plateaus, visibility capacity plateaus, purpose, embodiment, which is your emotional capacity, your spiritual, your mental, your physical capacity, your boundary capacity, and structural capacity. Those are the areas that people tend to hit plateaus in. Now, because she had her structural capacity in place and she had her boundaries in place, so she wasn't like taking calls at all hours of the night, you know, and she had all these things in place, she was able to have the capacity to handle the health issue that had cropped up for her and 35 sales calls in 2 weeks, right? So that's the nuance that I think is very important for a woman to acknowledge to herself, is where in these 6 areas is it a shit show? Let's just be honest, you know, like,
yeah,
it's a shit show.
And I'm right away, I was like, I've got to make a pie chart. Like, this is a beautiful pie chart. And I know that there were times, and I know I know anybody watching this will relate. There are times where you feel like one is completely out of balance. But what I really hear you saying is, if you want to do the work, show up, especially in the online space or offline or on a stage on TEDx or whatever your dream vision is for your business. These containers, these little capacity holders have to all be filled so that you can say, okay, so I'm feeling a little fear or whatever, or no, I have, I'm going to tell this person. And then you have somebody like you to say, hey, this isn't the case. And then eventually, one of my questions is, do you feel eventually that just starts to intuitively come where you say, oh, I'm pretending. I'm pretending now.
Yeah, it does. It's like anything. You have to have it pointed out to you first to see it, right? Because sometimes we have these blind spots and we don't see, and we're really in our story. And we do. That's why coaches exist, right? That's why good friends who are willing to just give it to us straight exist, because we need the blind spot pointed out to us. But I think that when a woman has all these capacity areas handled, right? So when you get that fear come up and you're like, oh, I'm feeling a little afraid, like I'm about to go on Oprah tomorrow, right? Well, actually, let me assess. My money mindset and capacity is on point. My team has everything set up for me. So all I have to do is show up because I've got my structural capacity on point. Like you can look through all your little buckets and go, oh, I'm actually fully supported and I'm ready for this. And then the embodiment capacity, which is the emotional capacity piece, you can handle these big emotions, right? And hold them in your body without totally losing your center or your core. And that's when you feel like you can walk into a room, sit in front of Oprah and just have a conversation with her in front of millions of people, because you've been doing the work to expand what you can handle emotionally, including being able to just be with your fear and not let it shake you. So like one of the things I talk about in my work is these 4 pillars, and one of them is equanimity. And equanimity is the ability to stay rooted and grounded and calm in the center when there's chaos and storm around you. That's emotional capacity, right? So I think that is how you are able to continue to expand your capacity and continue to take these bigger and bigger opportunities, is that you're constantly working on, okay, well, I'm hitting a little bump here. That means, let me check my capacity areas. What's off whack? Yeah. Or sometimes they're really good, like they're great for you until now, but now I'm about to go to like Oprah level, right? So my capacity containers need to get bigger so I can go to Oprah, or my boundaries now need to change, right? Maybe I need to get on the phone less with non-paying clients now because I need to put all my focus to go here. Or maybe I need to tell my kids that they're going to start cleaning their own rooms because mama's got to write her book, whatever it might be. Our capacity areas and the way we're examining them are constantly evolving to match where we want to go. Does that make sense?
Oh, I love that you brought that up, because I know, especially, let's say, for the powerhouse woman, for the doer, for the woman who says, I don't need any help. I'm going to wear the cape. I'm going to handle it all. That has been such a thing that, just man up in, that man up term. And I think about it because what you just said, many light bulbs went off, but I said, there's not one person watching who wouldn't say, I'm not asking for help. I'm fried. I'm crying like in the pantry. Mm-hmm. I'm not feeling grounded, stable, all the words. And because of it, overwhelm comes in, or because of it, we really step away from being able to show up as our authentic self. And that's what I love, that you've painted this picture of, well, you've got to fill up, these capacity. And guys, what Lisa is teaching, please go to her site, and I will post this, we'll say this after, but post this in the show notes, because I know how in depth this is. This isn't just like, fill up your container, here's a mason jar. it's real work. And it's just like what you said, it's being willing and being open to somebody calling you out and saying, no, let's really figure out what this part is. So when you said boundaries, yeah.
I want to add something because I think something you said was so important. This thing about like, I'm Superwoman, I'm wearing the cape, I can do it all. That's a capacity issue. That is not like that is not you being a powerhouse woman. That's you having a capacity issue, because having capacity means that you also have the capacity to delegate, and you have the capacity to create the structures that are going to hold you up and support you in doing your highest leverage work. So if you are like, I can do everything, but half of what you're doing is low leverage and not really using your gifts and your brilliance and what you're really here to do, then you, my friend, have a capacity issue. And that's not a good thing.
And that's where what you're saying now, it really feeds back into these old stories. Not only these old stories that society has laid on, but these old stories maybe that you've inherited karmically, or you watched, or you witnessed, and that one is still holding them.
Yes, exactly.
And I love that point that you brought up of raising prices. I can't tell you how many times that guilt would come in. And it wasn't even fear, it was like guilt.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought up all these different points. What I want to touch on, because I see you on, Facebook, I see you very visible. Your visibility is huge, especially you go to your site and you're looking at all the places that you've been visible. So tell me, for the person who says, she's holding this space, she's just got it figured out. Can you kind of roll it back some years, and if you can even define just some of the steps that you need to take, why were you so called to this work?
Yeah.
So that it helps somebody who's just like, wow, she's so amazing. This is what I was like, I will never be her. I mean, she's talking about Oprah. I will never. So that's all of those stories and the capacity and the self-worth. And so kind of bring us back even what called you to do this work, because this isn't the typical nutrition. You're talking on something that is so, and I'm not saying nutrition isn't big, but this is so big as far as the human that you want to be showing up in the world, not just in work, because we're talking about marriages falling apart, the guilt that you feel when you're not with your child, all this stuff that clearly the capacity buckets, these pipes are not filled up.
Yeah. It's really funny. I kind of stumbled into the work, but now when I look back, I'm like, oh, hell no. My whole life leading me up to this. But I was actually an actor in New York City. I was doing pretty well as an actor, and I was getting frustrated because I couldn't just go to auditions whenever I wanted to with my day job. And a friend of mine said, oh, I started my own coaching business. And at the time it was health coaching. So I was like, oh, well, maybe I should do that. It was just all very like on a whim, but it was following hunches, it was following those little pulls of the soul that you get. And I enrolled in nutrition school and graduated, and I started working with people nutritionally at first. But then I just noticed that my clients how much more can I tell you about green juice after a while, right? Like now you know what you need to eat.
Right. The superfoods that we just went over for like 5 times. I hope that you got it.
Right. There's deeper stuff coming up for them. As like food is a doorway, right? So there was all of this deeper stuff coming up for them. And I just noticed that I enjoyed so much more talking to them about that. And I was really good at talking to them I was good at nutritional stuff because I've been doing, all of us to go into nutritional stuff or have been doing it on ourselves for years. But it was different. It was my zone of genius, the deeper work that I was doing with the women. And eventually, more and more powerful women were hearing about my work and they were coming to work with me. But I want to say, I don't have it all together. The work of capacity expansion is a continuous process. I am currently, last week, I was feeling very overwhelmed and out loud saying, okay, my capacity is being expanded right now. Because I am in a massive expansion right now, going into my next level. And I realized the team I have can't go with me. I have to hire a whole new team. You know how overwhelming it is
Oh,
to replace.
do you know, I have to just say, because this, I mean, I've always adored you, always. I have followed you my entire career from IN. What you just said, that to me embodies the entire powerhouse woman. A
Mhm.
woman, because I was so scared always to say I didn't have it together.
Yeah.
I could talk about my autoimmune because that was okay, but that I didn't have it together, that I was scared, that I was overwhelmed, that it was sometimes a little messy in the back office, and that there are these transitions, and that I believe 100%. If you talk about the system myth, this just, oh,
You have to appear. That's actually something that's also even rooted in racism, is like that you have to appear like almighty and perfect, and like not, that is such BS. Like that is not a sign of an advanced human being at all. It's just a sign of a person who's really good at hiding stuff. And I think when we give ourselves that permission to just be in process, right? Like, this, you've been in business a long time. I've been in business a long time. Business is like this.
yeah.
Like personal development is like
like,
this. Like,
you're like, I'm so great. Oh my God, I'm now crashing. And
you're
I don't mean crashing adrenals.
no, I know.
I always sit with my acupuncturist, who
Yeah.
I've seen for 9 years consistently, and she always says, hey, it's always going to be like this. That's the myth. We think, I'm going to get the perfect funnel, just like you said, the strat. I'm going to get the perfect funnel. I'm going to this next course. I'm doing this. And all I hear is somebody saying, why am I not making money? And I can only
Right.
say, maybe you're not just sitting
Yeah.
in quiet time. My business stopped strangling me when I said, I don't have to be everywhere. No one's going to die.
Yeah.
Everything, I can ask for help. When I stepped into those places, and I love that you are talking about this, because everyone thinks, oh, well, she probably has this, she probably has that. And that's what we're fed on social media. Buy
Right.
this one thing, everything will be perfect.
Right. We compare ourselves and then go, what's the point? I'm not as awesome as that person. And it's a lie. Like, it's not true. There are always, no matter what level you're at, no matter how much money you're making, no matter how much fame or visibility you have, no matter how many people adore you, no matter how many media outlets are featuring you, it doesn't matter. Okay. There is always a challenge. Always, because that's what expansion is. If you are a human being who likes to evolve and expand and continuously grow, then you will always have new challenges placed in front of you, because it's through the challenges that you get to the next level.
Yes.
You can't get to the next level if you don't go through a challenge. It's like going to the gym. Like, I can't expect to go do 5 pull-ups if I've not been working my muscles to do the pull-ups, right? So that, to me, like, I love that you're talking about this, because it's not a linear process.
No.
And even though I may have way more money than I did 10 years ago, I still have money stresses that come up, but it's a whole other level, right? It's a whole other situation. I
Yeah.
still have, we grew up until this point and the team I had was great, but now they don't have the capacity to go to the next level. And like, we're all like, we love you. Like, we all love each other, but we all also kind of realize you need more now. Right. So no, like,
And I love that you talk about that, because everyone thinks you just started, you created perfectly, and it just never changes. But
no,
what you're bringing to light is what I talk about all the time. As I say, this is going to ebb and flow. Your business, just like your life, just like your relationships.
yeah.
I know a huge part of what you do in your work is talking about these 4 pillars that
Mhm.
women must have to get to these expansion levels. Can you talk about these 4 pillars? What's so
Yeah.
essential?
Yeah. I wanted to add one little thing before I talk about
Please.
that. that capacity is being able, so emotional capacity, right? And we'll talk about the pillars because this leads right into the pillars. It's just being able to understand that it is up and down. There's new challenges. It's never going to be like, and now I've made it and I have no worries and my family is perfect and money just effortlessly comes in. Like, I'm sorry, like kill that illusion right now.
No matter how much like Om Shanti and vision boards and abundance mindset, because I love.
It's liberating. Like when I finally told myself, oh, I'm never going to get to the place where I have all this perfect stability. I was like, oh, there was a liberation in that. And then capacity is knowing that you have the capability to just handle it, like to navigate all of the ups and downs while staying centered in yourself. And so that leads me to the pillars, which to me are sort of like the foundation of what allows you to be a high-performing woman in the world, leaving this amazing legacy, impacting so many people, and still having a good life, like having a good ability.
So loving, I even turn to my husband, I'm like, if I didn't change, and I will just, and I'm like, okay, let me just say this, and then we're going to go into the 4 pillars. If I didn't change, I knew spiritually I was going to die.
Yes.
And it was a mindset. It was a story. It was a belief that I have carried some of my earliest memories months old.
Yes.
And that old story, I went into, I always say, do the work, but there comes a point where you're like, it's not about just another person. Like you said, it's not just about another outside. It's like, now I have to change everything about how I think, how I react, how I breathe, how I don't react to hater. I hate using that word haters, but people who are irritated or upset that maybe you're growing and they're not,
right.
Or jealousy, stuff like that.
Right.
All of what I call the 7 deadly sins.
Yes.
And it was really going into every cell and saying, I'm going to change the way I operate. I'm going to change the way I operate, change the way I think, change the way I process.
Yeah.
And it was life-changing.
Yeah, because I mean, I love that you're saying this, because what good is it to have $1 million and have all these people following you, and yet one comment from a hater knocks you off for a week? Like you're just knocked off your center and feeling like crap, and it like you hold back your visibility for a week. Like you're losing momentum in your shooting star right there, right? So that's why I love that you're saying this, because that internal work is so important. You need to be able to roll with all those punches, and just, they don't really affect your sense of like how you perceive yourself. They don't affect you putting yourself out there. They don't affect how you feel about yourself or your sense of worthiness. So the 4 pillars are discernment. And discernment is the ability to know the difference between the voice of your soul and the voice of your ego. Because the voice of the ego is really important. And I really am not into ego bashing, because I think the ego is wonderful. And the ego is such an amazing help. And the ego is the part of us that helps us create structures and figure out how we're going to do things. And it tells us to brush our teeth and put on pants in the morning, like otherwise we'd just be walking around pants and not having any, like we wouldn't like. Yeah. The ego is good to some extent,
and
right?
You need that healthy ego to also build a business, but then it can get unhealthy.
Right. Then we over rely on it. And what happens is most successful women put the ego in the driver's seat of the car. And actually, your ego is not in its zone of genius when it's in the driver's seat. Your ego does well in the passenger seat of the car. The driver's seat is where your soul goes. You want to call it your higher self, your soul, your intuition, whatever you want to call it. I don't care.
Just know it.
Yeah, whatever you call it. That's what needs to go in the driver's seat, because that part of you is connected to divine intelligence, God, universe, wisdom, whatever you want to call it. And that part of you has knowledge that is impossible to access with your ego mind, because the ego mind is of the world, right? And the ego mind helps you navigate the world. But universal, divine wisdom that channels through you and feeds your work, that comes from your soul. And what I find is a lot of successful women put ego in the driver's seat and soul in the trunk of the car, not even in the passenger seat, like soul's all the way back there. Because sometimes the soul says crazy things to you, like, you need to shut this program down. And your ego's like, that program makes me $300,000 a year. I am not shutting. Are you crazy, soul? Like, why would you? But
Bye-bye.
right, but soul knows that there's $1 million client around the corner that you can't
Yeah.
receive if you don't shut that $300,000 program down. That's what I call intelligence. Ego is intellect. Okay. And so being able, and this is successful women struggle with this a lot. And I work on this intensely with my clients, because if you can put your soul in the driver's seat, and this is what the dynamic looks like. I feel like we need to shut this $300,000 program down. Are you crazy? No, this is where we need to go. When ego then goes into passenger seat, what's a good passenger in a car, right? The passenger's like telling you funny stories, keeping you awake. They've got the map and they're like, I know the GPS says to turn there, but actually it's a little further ahead. They are supporting you and helping you along the journey as soul is driving, right? And so when you can have that dynamic where your soul tells you, this is how I need to handle this client, this is how I'm going to make my next 100K, I need to shut this program down, I need to set a boundary with this colleague, this client is taking too much of whatever it might be that you are feeling from a soul level. When ego and soul when you have discernment, you can tell that is actually coming from your soul, therefore it's the right move for you. It's when we get in trouble when ego is like, but you can't shut that program down, it makes you $300,000, and then you're operating from fear, and then you're making all your decisions to keep running that program from a place of fear and not trusting in your divine guidance from within. And that's when a lot of women get into trouble, is like the revenue plateaus, things start falling apart because they let ego make the decisions. So that's the one pillars. And when you have that tool of being able to discern, okay, wait, what is this little voice coming from? Is it coming from fear? Is it coming from my limitations? Or is this really what I'm called? Like the divine wisdom that pushes me forward in my purpose? Is that what's speaking to me here? The next pillar is equanimity. And equanimity, I already talked about it a little bit. It's the ability to stay calm and centered and connected to your core, no matter what the chaos is. And like I said, if you can't handle the chaos in your life, then you have no wealth, true wealth, because you've got all this money, you've got all this attention, and you feel like emotionally bankrupt, or you feel crazy inside. You feel like everything is just so hard because every little outside thing keeps throwing you off, you know? So that's one that I think is extremely important. And then sovereignty is one of those. And sovereignty to me means, because it's a really like big buzzword these days, sovereignty to me means trusting in and feeling confident about the decisions that you made from your soul place, from your place of discernment. So not second guessing yourself, taking a million years to make a decision because you don't trust yourself, just feeling very confident that the decision you made is the right one for you. Sovereignty is also the ability to walk into a room and go, I belong here. I don't care who's in this room. I don't care if Oprah is in this room. I belong here. And that's something that we do a lot, is we go, I don't belong. Oh my God, these people are so amazing. Sovereignty is going, hi, I'm here. Hi, I'm here. I belong here. I'm a contributor to this space. And then I get to see you, right? Instead of all your insecurities. And that's when you shine. And then the last one is boundaries. And boundaries is the big one. Everybody.
I think everything that you talked about, and that's why when you say the 4 pillars, I truly believe, because you touched on everything that I've either worked on or continue. Let me not say worked on, continue to work on, continue to hold my space for.
Yeah.
They're essential. There is nothing without that, because what you're saying, and I keep hearing, it's like you want to grow, but then you don't because you stay stuck in one pillar.
Yeah.
You want to show up, but then you doubt yourself, so you don't. You want to do a live because you really feel you need to say something, but then you say, well, what if people think I'm stupid?
Right.
And it goes back to that original. What is that story? To really have that confidence in yourself? Do you believe in yourself? Do you care for yourself that much? And all the things that you said in the beginning that no need to repeat, but that is such a beautiful outline of the map. You've given us even 2 maps, not strategy maps, 2 soul and spirit maps for really stepping into your, not just your truth, your vision of what you want to do in the world, and not be emotionally fried, spiritually fried, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that you can show up as your truest, most powerful essence, instead of like all of these insecurities, and or you like your energy is like, instead of your energy being at 100%, it's at 50%. And so that shows in that TEDx talk that you do, So yeah, absolutely. It's so important. And I think the ability to say no is also a really huge one.
And
yeah.
I said, one of the words that I said to myself, okay, this year, I said boundaries, alignment, and being unapologetic.
Yeah.
For myself. And that's such a huge thing.
Yep.
I mean, I have a daughter. I mean, I have a daughter and a son, and both is about empowerment, but teaching my little girl this, I say, you have no idea, because something happened the other day and she said, Mommy, she's 10. She goes, Mommy, I'm going to get on the phone with that person, and this is what I'm going to say. You gave 50% work to my mom, and she had to sit there fixing it for 4 hours. And that took away from her life, her happiness, time with her kids, and hanging out with her husband. And so I'm only going to pay you 50%. And then she turned to me and goes, Mommy, you need to have a contract for that, because if this happens again, I'm going to be really upset with you. And I thought, what? I have done my job, because I was the doubter, even as a kid, doubter. And I look at her and I say, thank God. And so I just want to say thank you for being here. It not only was it a wealth of information, but it was a different way and approach of looking at up-leveling and growth and expansion. And also ownership of being a freaking woman in this world, and what to step into our truth. So can you tell everyone where to find you, your website, fun social media handles, stuff like that?
Yeah. Well, you can actually sign up on my website for a capacity conversation video series that I have that walks you through all your capacity plateaus. It shows you where yours might be, how you're hiding from your capacity, how you're telling yourself you don't have capacity, and what ways you're doing that, and then what life can look like when you have capacity in that area. So if you sign up on my website, just in the little sign up for my email list, lisafabrega.com, you can go straight there and it'll automatically start sending you the video series. And then you can find me. I'm the same across the board. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Lisa Fabrega. That's all. It's easy.
We'll put that in the show notes. And thank you so much. As I said, you have talked about stuff that is essential, especially in this world that I look at right now, where there is just spiritual sickness across the board. And so this talk is pivotal and essential at any time, but in this world right now, I think everyone could benefit, man or woman or child, from this talk. So I just want to really thank you.
My pleasure. And I want to say one thing. If you think that you can get to your highest level without this, think again, my friend.
Let me speak from experience.
Me too.
Or you'll do it and you'll be walking around like, oh, I feel like I'm dying. When
you won't be able to sustain it. You can't sustain it. You can get there, but you can't sustain it. Yeah.
Well, guys, what I suggest is going through this, stopping this video, taking notes, go over to Lisa's site, definitely sign up for that free, amazing gift. And I just want to say thank you guys so much. Remember, live in your truth, show up, be authentic, and you will make money. But most importantly, you will have that ability to change other people's lives. So we will see you on the next podcast. See you later, guys.